a lot of y'all are talking about, as a wife, what I would do. I would submit to my man. You wouldn't even know what to do once you became a wife. Like, what's on the other side of that? I, as a woman, don't want my greatest achievement to be marriage, to be the fact that I got picked by a man and you didn't. I am more than that. It is not because a gender wars conversation. It's not because as a feminist, blah, blah, blah. It's because as a human being, I am significantly more complex, nuanced, and the value that I have the potential to bring into this world spans beyond getting picked. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monica and today's video is a long time coming. We are finally talking about submission. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch, for clicking this video. If you can, please subscribe, please leave a comment, please leave a like. It would be much appreciated. So, being that today's video has to do with imagining more progressive and free futures, not only for women, but for all of us that are marginalized and have felt disconnected from our own bodies, I am happy to share today's sponsor, Cheeks. I've talked about Cheeks before, and I'm so happy to have the opportunity to share them again because I believe if we're to enjoy adult content, it should be safe, ethical, and consensual. Cheeks is a membership-based platform where you can find authentic adult films, erotic audio stories, live workshops, and a taboo-breaking magazine, all produced responsibly. They strive to depict sexuality in more inclusive, diverse, and safe ways, focusing on real couples, authentic performances, and education. I think pornography gets a bad rap for many reasons. There's horrible standards in the mainstream industry for workers and also toxic depictions of what intimate acts should be like. I, however, am a fan of watching adult content. I feel like it's given me the freedom to explore my sexuality safely, and I feel like as women, there's never really space for us to have fantasies or to say what we want. A lot of heteronormative relationships revolve around a man's pleasure and never ours. So understanding your desires and how your body functions can be a huge confidence boost and can help you communicate needs better. Cheeks is a great platform because it's ethical, unlike a lot of free porn that exists on the dark corners of the internet. Ethical porn aims to create better and safer standards for all participants with more comprehensive practices around consent that factor in the physical and emotional states of performers, better production conditions for everyone involved, as well as more authentic depictions of sex. If you're interested in safe, ad-free, virus-free Cheeks experience, join today to access high-quality, diverse, inclusive erotic content by using my code MONICA07 for 7 days free using the Linktree link in the description below. That's 7 days without obligation and free of charge to test Cheeks with an annual subscription. And you're free to cancel within the trial period if you try and you're like, this is not for me. Now, subscriptions are $14.90 per month or $9.90 with an annual subscription. Try Cheeks, that's code MONICA07 once again. Click the link in the description. And now back to the video. Given a lot of the online discourse on relationships, tradition, and gender roles, it's my goal for this video first and foremost to convey the importance of thinking critically about the topics we're going to discuss for the sake of imagining more progressive and inclusive futures that aim to break generational cycles of trauma. Very lofty goal, very lofty ideal, but that's kind of what we're in the business of over here. While these conversations may not have major impact on systems themselves, like I'm not going to single-handedly dismantle white supremacy, but in our interpersonal and romantic, familial, platonic relationships, reflecting on oppressive paradigms can not only be a catalyst for change in our own communities, but it can also be an integral part of our own personal healing journeys. Things such as the American dream, going to college, getting a job, getting married, buying a house, and having children all seems like light years away. It seems like this fairy tale. It seems absolutely ludicrous, unachievable, unattainable. A lot of people are 38 with 8 roommates because it's just like, yo, I have a college degree, $150,000 in debt. I can't get married and I'm pushing 40 and don't even have a car and have medical debt. Like, that's a lot of Americans. That's a lot of people I know that like went to really incredible schools, got really good jobs, and cannot make ends meet. So yeah, everyone's struggling to pay rent, find even like okay produce at the supermarket. I cannot ever find like actually like appropriately priced food ever where I live. A lot of places in the Bronx where I live are food deserts. And also the fear of falling ill for a lot of us. We don't have jobs that have insurance. I am self-employed. I do not have like a job that gives me insurance. I do not have retirement funds. I don't have anything, bro. Like, and we can't, even if I did have a monthly insurance, how long could I pay it for? It depends on the next job. You know what I mean? So amidst these trying times, is where people split, right? There's individuals that see these issues as systemic, less to do with one's will to hustle, to rise, and to grind, and more to do with the failings of late stage capitalism. And then there's those that see the issue as individualistic, that think you should just work harder and do more and make more. And if you're failing, it's solely your fault. And you have to, and to blame the systems that you're talking about as cowardice. Like, you think about like boomers that are just like back in my day, and it's just like, you know, kids don't want to work anymore. No one wants to work hard. Everyone forgot what is hard work. And it's just kind of like, I think you're kind of missing a lot of key historical, like, political factors that are currently affecting our generations and are affecting the older generation as well, whether they realize it or not. So I say all this to say is that when we're faced with true fear, the fear of the unknown, that uncertainty of what's to come, a break from the promises we were told, there are those that try to imagine a world that progresses beyond what we've yet to know. And then there's those that try to hold on to tradition. And there's nothing wrong with tradition inherently, with preserving your cultural values and treasures. But when the systems under which you were brought up under no longer protects you or reflects your reality, what do? You know what I mean? Because I feel like I can picture a world, and a lot of people say this is idealistic, this is childish, this is like adults don't dream, but it's like I can imagine a world beyond like capitalism. I'm laughing because like this video has taken me so long to shoot, and the pressure I feel is because of all of this. But like, I can imagine, as I almost cry, I can imagine, like, look at me, I'm imagining. I can truly imagine, and then there's people that are like, no, Black Little Mermaid is a threat to the American family. Like, it's like, yeah, the divide is real. And I think it's I think it's a lot, everybody's ultimately suffering. The point I'm trying to make is that we're all filled with fear. So let's move on to the next section, which is the Divine Femininity Sphere is just a manosphere podcast with a dress on. I feel like that title gives me Panic at the Disco style title. Like, what is it? Lying is the most fun a girl can have with her clothes on, or whatever that song is. So for me, I see a lot of these online conversations on masculinity and femininity that revolve around the preservation of patriarchal views as the product of a lot of the uncertainty and fear we feel in regards to financial stability and lovelessness. I think it's one thing to live within the confines of the patriarchy like a regular person, like all of us do. We're all living under the confines of the patriarchy, and you know, you do your regular job and you do regular things, and that's it. But I think it's another thing to get on your platform and go live over 8 hours a day preaching about what women should do and what men should do, and if you had a wife, how would she be, and if you had a husband, how would he be, and like rather than just simply like all of us being a victim or a beneficiary, because some of y'all definitely benefit from the patriarchy, like rather than just that, you literally become an agent of propaganda for a system that calls for compulsive performativity for survival. We need to put a ban on Best Buy selling audio equipment to everyone, because there's way too many people, not me becoming a fascist for free speech. No more mics. there's a ban on mics, no more mics, because there's like a lot of people that is like, you're not just like living within the patriarchy, like you are like a patriarchy stan. You're the barbs of the patriarchy are the people that like get on the mic for 12 hours a day and just like talk absolute crap about like gender roles in 2022. Like that for me is just like, you're not a regular person. You literally cannot be. I'm not a regular person, but at least what I'm talking about does not advocate for the subjugation of people that have been marginalized for centuries. And I think this is clearer to see in male spaces. Like it's clearer to see, you know, like the male podcasters saying things like, oh, I like to date younger women because they're more malleable.
I fucking love young women. Slayer. Between 21 and 25.
21?
21 and
20. You're 33.
I'm 33 years old. It's been the best fucking experience.
I think I know why.
The best experience. Like, these women, typically very malleable, right? Very, very cooperative, extremely cooperative, right?
This is Kevin Samuels Jr.
Exciting. listen.
For sure.
No, let me tell you, because I'm just being very honest about my experience. Like, they don't have many negative experiences. So they do truly give you grace.
Like stuff like that, like stuff that's like wildly like, whoa, like, police, help.
Police! Help! Police! Help!
But something a lot of people don't realize is that women that preach traditional femininity, which is often branded as women tapping into the divine feminine. So like the divine feminine girly, and then they all talk about like how the balance in relationship has been thrown off, and like women are behaving too masculine, etc., etc. And how to, and not even necessarily that, some of them will be like, you're soft, how to tap into your soft divine receiving energy, all that like stuff, right? It's still advocating for the same oppressive gender performance, because it's ultimately a performance. If you have to look it up and follow a top 5 things submissive, feminine, divine feminine women do list, it's a like you have to learn to do it. That's not you. But anyways, they're advocating for the same oppressive gender performance as men. Obviously not to the same toxic extremes, but they're to the same men that are talking about traditional masculinity. It's the same as the divine femininity girlies. The divine feminine and the manosphere podcast world are two sides of the same coin. The coin being patriarchy. It's like two sides of the same paper. You know what I mean? It's like on one end we have the girls telling you to be soft and submissive, and on the other end you have the men telling you to be soft and submissive. It's the same thing. It's just one is wearing a feminine dress and has a natural beat, and the other one is dusty. This is not going to be a video about the male podcasters, but rather I really want to focus on how behind the wall of faux softness and submissiveness exists an insidious reality sold to young women who suffer from a lovelessness that consumes them. An antidote sold to vulnerable, oppressed minds in the form of, you will be worthy when you soften your hardness, when you trade in your criticality for blind loyalty to a man, and live out the life you are naturally, biologically, socially, even spiritually. Like, y'all love to bring Jesus into this, like, meant to live, which is that of a submissive and feminine woman. I see these messages as insidious. I choose the word insidious specifically because insidious connotes a gradual process. Subtle, but there's a harmful effect. It takes time. It just creeps in. You know, right now, like, it's easy to see the beautiful, hyper feminine young women online talking about opening themselves up to receive, to be taken care of, to be sought, to be led, to be good wives, to husbands safe yet to find. And like, don't misunderstand this whole spiel, this whole video as me having a problem with feminine people. Yeah, I don't have a problem with feminine people. I don't have a problem with people that look for more traditional dynamics in their intimate relationships. There's a reason why, to a certain extent, like within this society, like the traditional like nuclear family makes sense, because someone within the way in which the West has organized the family structure, like it is no longer like a village. It's now like you are now an isolated mother that has no other contact with other members of the community to help you with this. So who else is going to take care of the kid but you? okay, you go work, husband, I'm gonna stay here. There's a reason why that traditional setup exists, and I'm never gonna be like, destroy that, because it's literally very functional for so many people. And I'm not opposed to living that way if it comes down to it one day. If it comes down to it one day where my partner makes a certain amount of money and I, let's say, have a child, and I'm like, yo, look, right now for the next like 3-4 years I don't want to work, like, that is whatever it is. The problem is not that. This conversation is not about that. It's about compulsive performance of femininity as a means to, like, I don't know, think you'll be saved. But yeah, I'm just really critical of femininity coaches, or the women that basically glamorize their own abuse as the true power of devotion and femininity. It's insidious because we will wake up one day and be our mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and old friends. Women who dim their own power to blindly follow men and only to lead to their ruin. You know what I mean? And this is no disrespect to our elders and ancestors that had to do what they had to do for survival. But if you're in a position where you can take notice of the situation and make some changes, where you can think critically about the patterns you may be replicating, like, you know, think about it. Like, and also, worst case scenario aside, as a woman, your greatest accomplishment doesn't have to be the way you look or having a husband. I think if you're in a position where you can reflect, imagine, and act out more dynamic and fruitful futures for yourself, where your intelligence, your personality, humor, resourcefulness, empathy, and other wonderful traits can create value and change, take the chance if you can, you know? And lastly, but very, very importantly on this section of the video, while I do believe your compulsive performativity of traditional femininity, so like subscribing to traditional portrayals of femininity, won't save you from the violence of patriarchy. For me, I think it's extremely important for us to like reflect on the intersectionalities of privilege and oppression. But yeah, like, I'm not trying to be like, this is what you have to do, and like, if you don't feel the same way, like, I get it, like, you know what I mean? This is only one perspective. But the reality of our society is that in a world where a woman's worth has time and time again been measured by her subservience to a man and her role as a second-class citizen, your choice to stray from the prescribed notion of womanhood and femininity does endanger you. In my specific situation, my privilege as a light-skinned woman will differ from that of a more unambiguously black woman, for example. Racism, and in my specific situation, colorism, is something that I immensely benefit from. Due to our society's foundation being rooted in white supremacy, European standards of beauty, which enforce colorism, featureism, texturism, and ableism, even in my attempt at being critical of the patriarchy and traditional femininity, I will still be regarded as more inherently feminine than darker skinned women, and thereby safer, as I will be deemed as softer and more in need of protection. Think about the archetype of the damsel in distress. White, pure, delicate woman whose feminine, delicate nature stands to be tarnished by the dark dangers of the world. She must be protected by a knight in shining armor. And there is honor in preserving her purity. It's like, you know, as a man I must protect. And I protect women who are deemed of protection. And it's like, who's deemed of protection? Small-bodied, feminine, white women. Straight hair. Within the beauty standards, the standards to which we must protect in the West, in America, that is what we glorify. You know what I mean? Hence why for so many women it's essential for their survival to align themselves with the status quo, to master and fine-tune the performance of femininity in hopes of protection from the evils of the world. So in today's message, please take what is necessary or impactful for you, but also ground theory and reality. Because I feel like a lot of people that see themselves as progressive and revolutionary will kick you to the curb when your performance doesn't mirror theirs, and not realize what you have to leave behind when you choose to challenge the values that are ingrained in your community. I think privileged people see activism and revolution in present day as this easy thing. Once you learn about it, you can share an infographic or two or go to a protest, but they don't take into consideration those that will be banished from their homes and murdered by those that were supposed to protect you, in a sense, just for you being different, right? So I respect you doing what you have to do to protect yourself, to stay safe, And yeah, because like the performance of femininity for a lot of women, especially trans women, will save their lives. You know what I mean? Like in a material, literal sense. You know, hardship aside, other aspects, other social aspects aside, your life is inherently easier when you present in a socially conventional way, unfortunately. So I understand people that like are like, yeah, I see this, I see how this hyper performance of femininity is oppressive, can hold me back, isn't allowing me to really explore who I truly am, isn't allowing me to relate to my husband, to my partner, and on a like an eye-to-eye level in an egalitarian sense. But it's also like it's either that, or as someone that is excluded from white supremacist standards of beauty, it's either I perform or I am literally the worst of the worst, perceived as the worst of the worst. I am damaged goods in a sense. And that's how a lot of unambiguously black women are treated, especially darker skinned black women. When you look at a lot of the statistics, for example, on dating sites, they're the least chosen, they're the least preferred. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of within certain groups of people, it's very important to perform the femininity, to really maintain a certain level of maintenance, of hair done, nails done, of makeup done, everywhere you look. Because I mean, even the discourse that was just had, like, well, how long ago on bonnets? It's just like, oh, it's I hate when white people when white people say ratchet. It's so weird to me. Or ghetto. I cannot stand that. But like a lot of people were like, that's some ghetto shit. Like people walking around in bonnets, but it's like white girls can walk around in a messy bun and it's an aesthetic and have their Starbucks and it's like cute because they're like petite and light. But it's just like a black woman goes to an airport in a bonnet and everyone's like, hold the fuck up. The black community is in shambles. This is why we can't have nice things. Like the whole like respectability politics like discourse kicks in, and it's just like you are then so heavily politicized that every single aspect of your existence, from your crusty nails to the fact you didn't want to do your hair going outside, is the reason why you are oppressed. Not the system. It's you deciding to go out in dirty sweatpants. So all that to say, I understand why some people have to keep the mask on, in a sense, have to keep the performance on. It is what allows people to enter certain places that they would never have been allowed to enter the protection of a man, in a sense, even if that man doesn't regard you as his equal. Shit, some people, if you need the shelter and you need the money, as we all need, if your materials conditions call for that, I get it. But you know, let's talk about it. So I saw this video on TikTok and I thought it was an interesting perspective. And what kickstarted this whole video for me, in a sense.
What does a submissive woman do for her man?
Everything.
What does that mean?
You know, like packing his bag, unpacking his bag, just making sure all the things that he wants. And like, I pretty much read his mind. So it's like, if I know you and I study you, like I know how you are in the morning, I know how you are about midday, I know when you're in this mood, what you need. Like before you can ever ask me for something, I'm already on it. I mean, he's spoiled. And you know, when I talk to my girlfriends about it, I was like, oh, how you guys doing? And I'm just like, girl, he's rotten. I'm like, he's spoiled rotten. Like he's rotten, but I love that. Like I want him to be that. I think my biggest flex is how I treat my man. And I've been known to love people back to health. And sometimes it's very draining, but my love is my superpower. And I used to hate that about myself, but now it's like, I'm just embracing it. Like, that's who I am. Like, if I love you, I can heal you.
It's your joy.
It is my joy. You know, I love to see him eating the meal that I cooked. I love seeing him sleep easy. Every night, like clockwork, I scratch this man's back to sleep. And I know when he's asleep because I can tell when his breathing changes. And some people might think that's psychotic, but that's like, I just know that's when I'm like, oh, I can stop now. But I find joy in being your rest, you know? So know what that means. And that works for us because He wants what I have to offer.
I then sought out the longer clip on YouTube and listened to the full podcast for further context. The video/podcast in question is Shan Boodram's Lovers and Friend podcast, episode 35, titled I Baby My Man and It Works For Us, where Shan features Jasmin Brown, aka Watch Jazzy. I, side note, love Shan's channel and actually really enjoy her podcast that she does with her husband. I'm a big fan of both of their content. And yeah, so she had Jazzy Brown as a guest on this podcast, and I wasn't too familiar with her, but she is an actress, content creator, and I am sure so much more. So when I initially made this video, like the video, the concept as a whole, like submission, and like thinking about it critically and reflecting on it, I feel like I wasn't, it also had to do a lot with this video. This is kind of like at the center of the video. This was the big bang of the video. I feel like I wasn't empathetic enough to Jazzy. I feel like I was, and like I feel like I was just too eager to criticize and forgot the whole point of the video, which is empowering women to notice the cycles of abuse we are replaying knowingly and unknowingly in our lives. Jazzy is only talking about herself and her experience, so I felt like I was being like way too reactionary to someone's like personal journey. I just felt like I was just like butting into a conversation that I didn't need to be in. Like that conversation that they had was like kind of weirdly personal, and I just felt like I was coming through like I have something to say. Like it felt like that.
Oh no, I lost my pen.
You could borrow mine.
Thanks.
I lost something once. I lost something I couldn't live without. My identity.
And like that was never the goal. The goal was to like, yo, there's a reason why I want to talk about this. Like this video really impacted me watching it for very specific reasons, and I feel like I made it so much more so about like Jazzy and not like the whole goal of the video. So as I listened to the podcast, the longer version of it, it became clear that she obviously is a victim of abuse. But it also became harder to make space for that and like not criticize her as well, when I felt like there was this also huge element of romanticizing what I essentially saw as abuse, because she was essentially framing things as love and devotion and trust. So it was complicated, but that's why I wanted to analyze this together. So in the start of the podcast, when given freedom to choose what she wanted to talk about, Jazzy chose submission, which Shan herself found unexpected as someone that had followed Jazzy for a long time.
To hear, especially from me, because you said, I would never think you would be like that.
I would not.
And that's interesting to me.
So, you know why? Because when I know of you is you've always been a hustler. You've always been a boss. You constantly reinvent yourself. So that's what I said. My first and foremost comment to you was I've known about you for over a decade now.
Oh, thank you.
That to be said, my perception of you has been like career oriented, me first, not in a negative way, but like kind of like that person who's like, I'm no good to you if I'm not good to me.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, me first. I'm not even like that.
And I assume unexpected giving takes like this.
Hey besties. I know I'm gonna offend some people, but trust me, this is coming out of love. This message is for all the pick-me's. Pick-me's are women who try to do everything right just so a man can choose me. Yeah, cut that shit out. Cause I'm gonna keep it real with you. Men already know what they want in a woman and who they want. But if you're so nurturing and you're an asset and it's not you, they'll never tell you to stop doing what you're doing because it's beneficial. And I don't want to hear none of that shit like, oh, I'm just a nice person. I'm genuinely like that. Well, bitch, you gonna genuinely get played. No, it's just that I'm just naturally like that. Like the shit I do for him is natural. And your natural ass is gonna get played. If you are making a man's life easier, i.e. cooking, cleaning, providing pussy whenever he wants, and he's giving you the minimum, he's never going to do more. And he's never gonna tell you to stop because it's beneficial to him. History in niggerdom ever has a man been like, oh, stop doing all this stuff. Stop making my life easier. I don't look at you like that. Hell no, they gonna kick their motherfucking feet up and enjoy these perks without doing no work.
So in this video from Instagram Reels, she warns that doing things in hopes of being picked or validated by a man whose affection and attention you're pursuing, and claiming that that's just how you are, your nature, will get you taken advantage of if he's not giving you the bare minimum. A lot of people criticize this clip because they saw the podcast with Shan, and found this take from before to be very hypocritical. And while as humans we will be hypocritical, it's natural, and there's sometimes nothing you can do about it, as we are all constantly changing and growing. I did find this video clip to be very illuminating. What I found interesting was the idea of the bare minimum, and how, at least in this video, it wasn't defined. Not defining the bare minimum for me creates a sort of protective dissociation from reality. And I don't like, while I go on this little tangent, I don't want to make it seem like this was like an intentional thing. I think too, like, you know, people have ideas of their bare minimum, but I feel like a lot of people don't verbalize them. It's just like, oh, I just want a good man. Like, what is a good man? Like, what makes a good person? I feel like a very important part in like just creating the life you want, setting boundaries for yourself, is being able to communicate, not necessarily to anybody, you know, who cares what people think, but to yourself. Like, what does this mean? So like, the idea of the bare minimum for me is just like, oh yeah, he better not be doing the bare minimum. Like, what does that mean? What are your standards, essentially? So for me, not defining that in the video, in a sense, it creates a sort of protective dissociation from reality, like this separation. By that I mean that, like, sometimes when we criticize situations and broadcast it, as someone that literally does this, I literally, like, you know, go on the internet and criticize situations. I feel like when it comes to that, you're either coming from a place of experience and then trying to warn people, like, I've done this before, I've been this person before, this is what I've learned. And other times I feel like we try to distance ourselves from the idea that we are that person, or that we have been that person, or could be that person. Ultimately, no one wants to feel like they're being played. No one wants to feel like they're being taken advantage of, or they don't even want to imagine that they're the type of person that would get taken advantage of. Like, that there's something in them and like about them that they're not perceiving that led to them getting taken advantage of. Like, you don't, like, when bad things happen, you sometimes are in denial and don't want to really think that it happened to you against your own will, because you're like, that would make you a victim. And within this society, being a victim is sometimes one of the worst things you can be, because it's like, oh, you really let somebody play you. So it's difficult to admit that you can be that person that got played in this world. And like, it's difficult to admit it to yourself. We say things like, I could never do this, or I could never do that like the other girls. And then we'll add this like stipulation, like, yeah, I'm doing what I'm saying don't do, you know, I'm doing the most. I'm cooking and cleaning and this and that. I'm doing what I'm saying don't do. But the difference is that I'm not getting the bare minimum. And for me, the bare minimum is an extremely subjective metric. The definition of bare minimum can change whenever it's convenient. Whenever the fear of being the type of woman that's being taken advantage of wins, and you bury the potential reality and then proclaim that, nah, I'm good because I'm not like the other girls that are getting the bare minimum. It's, in my opinion, a cop-out, because the video and the podcast could have just been about the ways in which she's pleased, loved, supported, cherished, and how she, in turn, matches that energy. But in the absence of that, it becomes about sacrifice and how much you can empty your cup. How willing she is to put her needs and preferences to the side for the dutiful service of another. And then many were also saying that the women that disagree with this, like with this idea of submission, with the way in which she paints her relationship, they don't have a good man. They just haven't found the right man, a man that leads, that they would actually submit to. And Jazzy wasn't saying this at all in the video, but like, you know, I just want to make that clear. I don't want to put words in her mouth. But a lot of people do have that like idea that it's like, oh, you just need to find the right man to put you in your place. Like, that's like, people leave comments like that under my videos. Like they'll literally be like, oh, she just really needs to meet somebody that'll put her in her place. She just really needs to meet somebody that'll like D her down. She'll really needs to meet somebody that's just kind of like, I am like in a healthy, happy relationship, y'all. It may not look like it, but that's just because it's my quirk. It's my style. I'm just somebody like, independent of what's going on in my romantic relationship, bro, I'ma think. Something about me, bro, I am plagued with a brain, and I'm gonna use it. It's one of the beauties of this world is the fact that I could like sit down, think, and create value. And that's something a lot of men and people cannot relate to. But like this idea of like, oh, you know, you got to submit for the right man, find the right masculine alpha man that will lead you, so you can finally let go of the worry and the stress of having to handle so much in your life, because feminine women don't got to do all that. This is a lot of like what the divine feminine girlies get into, which is the idea that modern women are basically living unbalanced lives, having to be more masculine and in control. But when we find the right man, an alpha man, a masculine man, a leader, we won't have to be so masculine to try and balance the relationship. What makes these conversations really like absurd for me is the language around it. The need to attribute specific defining characteristics to masculine and feminine can make accountability and partnership difficult, because the roles of men and women are social constructs that can vary, but also don't take the wholeness of who we are outside of the gender we have chosen or were assigned into consideration. I think the conversation could be way more productive if we talk about actual needs, boundaries, and responsibilities and goals that we have in partnership, and not having everything relate like back to the construct of gender. And not because we can't talk about gender. Like, I love to talk about gender, I love to think about it critically, but because the idea that certain characteristics are inherent to a gender and it is our duty to fulfill them, for me, doesn't make you a better woman, man, wife, husband, mother, father, anything. It can be constraining and may limit accountability, because things will fall into the argument of, well, as a man, I need this or that. Like, as a man, I need to go put my genitals into another person. When it's just like, the conversation isn't about your gender or your genitals. It's literally about like, you broke a vow, like we had like an understanding, and I feel like making everything well back into like, well, I'm a man and you're a woman, it like that's where the conversation stops. Like, that's literally like, your world is this small, your ability to take an accountability is like non-existent, because you can always fall back into like, well, this is what I'm biologically supposed to do. And it's like, says who? And it's like, even independent of that, is like, if you say you're gonna do something, if you're literally gonna be like, I'm married, loyalty, whatever the setup of your relationship is, and then you like willingly break it for whatever reason, and then you revert back into like, well, as a man, is like, well, as a man, are you supposed to be a liar? Like, does that also go with manliness? Like, as a man, are you supposed to lie? But yeah, I just feel like those like like making everything about that doesn't like help your actual partnership, like in the daily sense, in the actual like, how can we work together as people to like create a household, to potentially raise a family, to buy a house, to achieve mutual goals. That has nothing to do with being a man or a woman from my perspective, but it just seems to keep going back to that. And the only reason why I'm stressing that is because I feel like a lot of people are just kind of like, wow, I used to be so masculine in my relationships. That's what a lot of like the divine feminine like videos I've seen are about. I used to be so masculine in my relationship when I was young. I had to plan everything, and I had to do everything, and I had to do this. Like, I had to take so much control until I found an alpha, a masculine man that was able to like control things for me. And it's just kind of like, you're probably talking about like relationships when you were in your early 20s, when you were dealing with someone that was essentially childish. You were dealing with someone that still has their mom wash their laundry. I don't think that has a lot to do with like gender, with like the archetype of man, and more to do with the fact that you're just dealing with someone that isn't like very like, you know, independent and cognizant of your needs, or sees you as someone that he wants to like do things with and for. And I think that that's just kind of like, you just need to pick a better partner, and I think that happens with time, and you learn that as you go. And I don't think it had anything to do with you being masculine. I think you just need a better partner. I have been in that situation before where it's like, I did a lot of the planning. I would never be like, wow, in that time of my life I was so masculine and my partner was so feminine. I just feel like what is like but yeah, I just feel like conversations that break down intimate relationships and don't think critically about social constructs of gender won't get you far, and we're just essentially the next generations of passengers on the hamster wheel of patriarchy. We're just constantly doing the same thing again, girl. So throughout the podcast, there were a ton of red flags that nulled the more idealistic, romantic parts of the video for me. I'm going to show different clips and then make points about them to analyze. Please don't be rude in the comments. This is not like a full picture of who Jazzy is as a person, I'm sure. And I feel like this is something so many of us struggle with. And this is something I really wanted to talk about. And in my response to these clips, like whenever like, you know, I'll play a clip and I'll say something, the things that I say, I'm not saying that she's saying these things or as I'm responding, I'm not saying she's saying the opposite of what I'm saying. I'm building off of what she's saying and using that as a jump off point or as an example. So don't like think I'm like, you know, through my response, like I'm telling her something. It's like I'm sure like a lot of the stuff, or if not all the stuff I'm saying, she understands. She is a grown-ass woman. I just feel like I wanted to use this to make a point. So please, you know, be kind, be nice. Even if you don't agree with what she's saying or you find it harmful or however you may feel about it, like be conscious of the fact that this is a whole ass grown woman, you know what I mean? So I think one of the most important overarching themes that I found in the podcast, and that in the sense is the whole overarching theme of the video, is not knowing how to communicate needs. There's a part in the podcast where Shan is essentially modeling how she communicates to her husband her needs, and Jazzy's reaction was shocking to me.
This dynamic, I think, like my relationship with my partner is very egalitarian, like we're equals. Like I don't ever feel like I'm giving for the sake of giving, and I'm not receiving for the sake of receiving. I'm receiving being like, well, I deserve this, and I'm giving being like, you deserve this. So there's that exchange happening.
So you speak on, you're like, you tell him the things that you need?
Yeah.
And the things that you feel like you deserve, you'll say that?
100%.
How will you say that?
I need you to step up in these areas. I need to not worry about this. I need to be able to take my brain off this thing. I need more affection. I need more love. If we're going to be sexual, here's the things that I need to like feel more sexual. And in return, I invite that. Like, so we have a lot of conversations.
How does he receive it well?
I think everybody has a problem with being told that they're not doing enough, because we always go to like, well, I'm already doing X, Y, and Z. Right. So I think that there can be, I wouldn't say that he's always arms wide open, but he always adjusts.
This was shocking to me because there was so much passion and confidence when she's speaking about how much she gives. But when it came to essentially asking for something, it was this like switch in energy. In general, I do not believe in power dynamics and intimate chosen relationships. But within the idea of submission and dominance, like if you're going to have that be a thing in your interpersonal relationship, I feel like a big part of submitting is submitting to someone you can trust to take care of you. She says time and time again that she trusts her man throughout the video. But for me, something like this shows a lack of trust. In Bell Hooks' All About Love, great book, talk about it all the time, she has a chapter about truth called Honesty, Be True to Love. And in it, there's a section where she says, patriarchal masculinity requires of boys and men not only that they see themselves as more powerful and superior to women, but that they do whatever it takes to maintain their controlling position. A commonly accepted assumption in a patriarchal culture is that love can be present in a situation where one group or individual dominates another. Many people believe men can dominate women and children yet still be loving. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung insightfully emphasized the truism that where the will to power is paramount, love will be lacking. Where the will to power is paramount, love will be lacking. This is something I wholeheartedly agree with. I think a lot of us came from homes where we were raised through force and violence. And to a certain extent, it's understandable in our communities where a lot of our family are immigrants that are disconnected from a sense of community and safety nets. Child rearing was never meant to be an individual mission. It literally took a village to raise a child. So the expectations of a parent, especially a single parent, and if you add in low income, language and or educational obstacles, housing instability, multiple children, lack of self-development because you had the children young, so you literally never got the chance to develop like a sense of self. And then like, you know, you down there taking care of a new life. And that's just to name a few things. A lot of us didn't like have the best examples of how to communicate needs, have them met, and overcome hardship because our parents never learned to do that in an emotionally balanced way. A lot of our parents have literally not overcome most things. If when you talk about, you see a lot of hurt, you see a lot of like neglect that they experience, and that's kind of how, you know, a lot of us were raised. It makes sense that our most like, it makes sense that our earliest form of love is through these oppressive sort of like, is through these sort of oppressive ways, force, domination, violence, because that is one of the ways in which our parents try to communicate with us, and we're existing in a world of fear. And honestly, becoming an adult and making money doesn't automatically put you in a position of overcoming the past. For a lot of us, we're constantly relearning the same lessons and caught in the same patterns of abuse that are the most familiar to us, and we learn to associate with love. So looking for the same oppressive power dynamics you associate with love from how you were socialized is, from what I perceive, a straight and narrow path to the same domestic struggles you witnessed growing up. Because it's not just as simple as, well, I'm more laid back and my man just happens to be a better leader. A lot of people are building entire theories about their natural subservience because the vagina is a hole and the penis goes in the hole, which means that women receive and men give. And it's like, please liberate us from the shackles of needing to feel dominated, controlled, and forced to feel loved, needing to fight, argue, have violence to feel like someone is literally fighting for you, which means they love you. I pray our nervous systems that have been biologically altered from centuries of chattel slavery and oppression can regulate, and we can find safety and comfort and inner peace, that we associate the almost boring, quiet, borderline platonic energy that safe long-term partnership brings with love and safety, rather than the roller coaster of daily emotions and humiliation, struggle, and violence. It pained me to hear how she just casually inserted into the conversation how she was like, I don't even need to say what's going on with me. I don't even need to say what's going on with me because I can just cry in the shower. I know how to deal with my emotions.
But I find joy in being your rest. And it shouldn't be conditional.
A part of that lack of conditions too means that you do your duty joyfully regardless of what's being done for you.
That's it. I do my duty joyfully regardless of what is happening to and for me. You know, now some days I might be more cheerful than others because I have my own stuff going on. You know, and there's times where it's like, I don't even want to say what's going on with me because, again, I know how to deal with me and my pain. You know, I'll cry in the shower and keep it moving, you know. But in the art of submission for me, because I can't speak for everybody, is being joyful about it.
As someone that had to process a lot of stuff alone growing up, my go-to when I'm struggling is to pull away. Like, don't touch me. I don't want to talk. I'm good. I used to think that I was vulnerable and open because I could talk about what has happened very clearly. Like, I can give you a very clear, like language-wise reinterpretation of what's happened. I can give you the details. I could talk about it. I'm not somebody that's like, my secrets. I don't feel like I'm not a very secretive person. Like, I just talk all the time. You know what I mean? But I used to think that was like me being vulnerable. That's me being open because I could tell the things that happened to me. But I never realized that truly trusting like someone, that it's like you have to be ugly in front of them, messy, wrong in front of them. Oh, God forbid I'm wrong. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I hate being wrong. Like, the fact that I can be wrong and still be loved is a major, like, battle that I'm fighting with. Like, the idea that because I'm wrong, I'm not bad. Because I made a mistake, I'm not bad. Because I don't understand a situation, I'm not bad. Like, it's such a hard thing for us to, like, break from, especially if we had highly critical parents. So we learn to like, all right, what do you need? We become hyper vigilant, and she shows like a lot of traits of that, of hypervigilance, of like, you know, when she's saying things like, I scratch his back and I know when he falls asleep and I know what he needs. Like, the idea is like, you don't even need to tell me. Like
what does a submissive woman do for her man?
Everything.
What does that mean?
You know, like packing his bag, unpacking his bag, just making sure all the things that he wants. And like, I pretty much read his mind. So it's like, if I know you and I study you, like I know how you are in the morning, I know how you are about midday, I know when you're in this mood, what you need. Like, before you can ever ask me for something, I'm already on it.
When you grow up with like emotionally unstable parents or an emotionally unstable parent, like you learn from literally the sound of the footsteps, from the way they close the door, what type of day you're about to have. Like, you had to be hyper vigilant for your survival. You had to, like, Janelle McCurdy talks about that in her new book, how like for her it kind of like, she was so like, immersed into the abuse, like so used to it that she was like, yeah, it makes sense. Like you literally start to normalize it and you start to think that like that is how people communicate, that's a healthy way to communicate. It's like the passive aggressive, the weird energy, the silence, the treating you like expecting you to respond to their subtle cues, their passive aggressive cues, when that just forces you to not only be aware of yourself and your actions, but constantly be attuned, have all of your reflexes, like your all aspects of your brain power are going into trying to understand a situation that no one is explaining to you. You know what I mean? Like having to like moderate the way you move and the way you breathe and making sure you're on top of things so it never turns into a problem. And a lot of people end up doing the same things in relationships, and that's how you sometimes feel like you're doing too much in a relationship, because in reality you really are. Like you're trying to read between the lines. You're like, oh, you know, he came home and he put his foot up, that means he's in a bad mood. I need to make sure that like I get his favorite cereal. It's just like, bro, like that man could just let you know. So, and then later on, like in the longer audio version of the podcast, there's a part where Jazzy basically expresses that she doesn't feel the need to argue if she knows what's in your heart, and she will basically role play the argument with herself.
Continue to like argue with myself about how I'm bothered.
But for me, I think I pick and choose my battles. A battle is not always worth fighting if I know your heart. Because I can have the conversation with myself and pretend like I'm having it with you and know what you're going to say. And then if I know what you're going to say, then I just won't have it, because it's like, he's going to say this, or he's going to feel like he didn't mean it like that. So I go through the motions, but if it is very gray, then I'll have that conversation, you know, because sometimes like he would,
is that new for you?
Yes. Yeah. I think and I watch my mom eat a lot of shit too. And I think that in a lot of ways that like my mom, the things that frustrate me about my mom, and I love her to death, like I find myself being that way too. Ugh. But it's like, ooh. So it's very interesting, because it's like my mom will call me and I'm like, Mama, you just got to be like this. You just got to say this. You got to be like this. But then me in my romantic life, it's like, ooh, I'm more like my mom than I thought I was.
For me, all of this signals a lack of trust. And whether the man isn't stepping up and fostering some open communication, or her own trauma is enough to where she stopped communicating needs and just started handling her stuff herself, like either way, some needs aren't being met. And no guy, like she said in the Instagram reel, no guy is going to stop you from doing the most. If you're not communicating what you need, he not going to be like, hey, you need something? Because like that's like the dynamic you're setting up, like to the point where you're role playing your closure. You're like, well, that upset me, but I know he gonna say, girl, you know, I was just kidding, you're tripping. Like you're literally role playing that in your head. Like that for me is not trust, that's fear. But yeah, like she said, no man's gonna stop you from doing the most. And then you maybe just tell yourself, you know, that's just me, that's how I express love, out of fear that you're doing too much. And the podcast was also really odd to listen to, because there were so many moments of self-awareness then burying out all the way. There's like parts where she literally says that someone told her, you're enabling him. And she thought to herself, maybe I am. And he's like, of course they're going to say that. They don't got anyone doing that for them. So like him saying that for me is evading accountability and spinning someone's concern as envy, like basically being like, oh, they just hating, when in reality they may have a point. Like how she said in the Instagram reel, he's not gonna stop you from doing most if it's convenient for him. From the sounds of it, like he has someone performing domestic duties, giving up bodily autonomy at the snap of a finger, and he's not even inconvenienced with her criticism and needs. And like he's not even inconvenienced with her having a bad day, from the sounds of it. Granted, once again, we are only listening to a podcast, but from the way this is like detailed, this is kind of like what it is. I think when you are, in my case, when you are young, you just think like it's the chill girl thing. It's just like, well, that's why this reminded me of my video of why grown men love younger girls. An important part of that video was how a lot of older men date younger girls because they're easier to manipulate, and you don't have to grow as a person when you're essentially dating a teenager. They're not really calling you out on your stuff like the same as someone that's your same age, that's in their 30s like you would, you know what I mean? But a teenager's like, oh, I'm just having fun. I literally have only been on this earth for like 20 minutes, but you kind of know better, you know what I mean? So that's why a lot of guys date younger girls. But like, and what I talk about in that video is how I convinced myself when I was that age that I was a chill girl, that I was cool with what was going on, that I wasn't like the other girls who needed like romance and relationships and the most, that I was independent and could handle this, like, unlike the immature, irrational, needy girls. And as I got older, I realized that not having boundaries made me really easy to manipulate. I wanted more, but to protect myself from maybe being denied, being alone, being rejected, or maybe even realizing in that moment that I am the type of girl that could get taken advantage of. Like, if I were to verbalize my needs and I don't get it, what does that then say about me? Like, am I being taken advantage of? So to not even like tap into that reality, I was like, I'm cool, and like I don't need any of that type of stuff. I'm just having a good time. Like, I didn't communicate any discomfort. I didn't communicate needs. You just convince yourself that you're just a giver, that you just love to do a lot, that's like, that's just what you do. And like, kind of like what she's saying, that she does her duty joyfully without needing anything in return. And, interestingly enough, she even talks about a similar situation of being young and being with someone that was significantly older and abused her, and how that was traumatic for her, which is like super unfortunate. And like, I think another main part of the issue with this conversation around submission is the idea that you being a good girlfriend or wife is essentially giving up bodily autonomy by forfeiting consent. I think people do this out of insecurity, and it's something a lot of women deal with, essentially forcing themselves to be sexual out of fear of being abandoned. A lot of people, that were abandoned, that feel less than, that feel like maybe they don't have enough to offer, that deal with, people that don't really respect them, will try to use sex as like a tool to keep the person. Like, okay, like, I'm gonna find whatever way, like when I have sex with him, when I hit him up for sex, I get that text back. Like, so that's the way I can keep him in my life, so I'm gonna keep doing that. I feel like when girls are younger too, they do that a lot, which is just kind of like, oh man, like, he's not ever interested in me except for when I do this. All right, I'm gonna do it. The way I feel about it is, if you gotta have sex you don't want to have for them to stay, the whole relationship is doomed to begin with, because you're in a relationship with someone that can't control themselves and only seeks to gratify themselves. And like, there was this really interesting video I saw on TikTok. I'll just like play it. I don't know from what podcast it was from. I'll like put the information.
Sex falls off. You could be in a depression. Something tragic can happen to you. Your money may not be right, and then you just really just not in the mood to have that intimacy. You just don't want to have sex. If I'm not in the mood because something happened to me, maybe I lost my job, something happened to me, and I'm just not. I'm not in the mood. I could go a week, but longer than that, I have to respect my man too. Yeah. Like, come on, he and I didn't know that until recently, because before it'd be like, I don't feel like it, so no, I'm not gonna do it, so no, it's compromise. I mean, again, it may not be the best, but I'll hand you some. But here it is. Yes.
So you would have to try to get yourself in the mood beforehand.
Like, you have to get yourself in the mood. You have to. I then looked at porn. Yeah. I didn't try to, because again, you're just not into it, and they can feel that. Yeah. Men like, oh, I just want, but it's not. It's the experience. If I just lay down and I don't make any noises, you'll hate it.
So that like TikTok on like that woman talking about, doing whatever it takes to get in the mood for her man was really heartbreaking for me to watch, because I feel like, while on one end I understand what she's essentially in the most zoomed out way she's trying to say, it's just she's trying to be a good partner that's fulfilling her partner's needs. I understand that, like that idea of like, I'm going through something, but I still have to remember that I'm in a partnership. I think that's one of the most difficult parts of being in a relationship, is realizing like you have a partner with you. You are also responsible for someone else's well-being and emotions, as they are responsible for yours as well. And you have to work together to fulfill each other's needs. Now, where it does become an issue is where their satisfaction comes at the cost of your bodily autonomy. Now, I understand trying to get yourself in the mood. You're maybe having issues. There's libido problems. You're like, I'm struggling with with this in my life right now, but I don't want to. I want to be able to, you know, connect with you, but I'm struggling to. But I think there's another situation where it's just like you're just doing whatever you can to get yourself in the mood just so you could do this because he needs it. And it's just like, that's like not really like the most, it's not giving it's not giving consent in the best way. I think Shan from the original podcast is really interesting. She talks about, I'll see if I can find the clip. She talks about with her husband how they actually don't deny each other sex, essentially, which I think was a very interesting perspective, which kind of sounds like the clip I just played, but it's not that at all. It sounds like it's more so from the perspective of she basically says, I hope I don't butcher it, I'll try and find the clip, but she basically says if one person's initiating, the other doesn't reject that initiation, even if they're not really in the mood. Now, she makes it clear, like, if you don't want to, you don't have to. But I feel like from that perspective, they came to this mutual agreement of the importance of this connection. Sex is ultimately an attempt at connection. It's kind of like a conversation. In that moment, you are becoming one. You are engaging in this transformative release. And if you are not like on board for that, if you're not in there right now, if you don't want to do that, but you feel like you have to give this person this for them to stay with you, that's a completely different dynamic. I feel like the way Shan talks about it with her husband is very interesting for me, because and even in her pregnancy video, she talks about how her husband doesn't like to have pregnancy sex, but they worked together to really make sure that they were continuing having sex, because they understood the importance of it for the baby, because it would keep, you know, her stress down, everybody, like, just to make sure that everything was running smoothly, that they were still connected and that the stress was down, you were getting that physical movement in, and etc., etc. So in that moment, it was used as a tool that they both used, and obviously there's consent, there's communication through that, from the way in which she talks about it. I feel like the way in which a lot of people talk about it is not in that same regard. When Jazzy's talking about it in regards to her having anal sex with her boyfriend, even though she doesn't like it, that for me is also very concerning.
Like, what's the incentive for you to do it if you're like, it's not my favorite thing, but I do it because X?
I think I just do it because he wants it. And I think, like, when you come to me in a space where it's like you're very masculine and it's just like, give me that ass, or however you say it to me, and you're like, ooh, like, I like that shit. Like, tell me what the fuck to do. Tell me what to do. I like to be told what to do. You know what I mean?
Even if the thing that they want you to do,
I don't want to do it. Yeah. That's traumatic too. I don't know, but like, because it's him, I trust him. I get.
She's talking about how she's not into it. It doesn't feel good, but she's doing it for him. From the way this is described, she literally says, I do it because he wants it. You know what I mean? And like, I understand that you want to give your partner something, you know, whatever, like, you love them. But like, then Shan's like, even if you don't want to, and she's just like, yeah, but that's traumatizing too. And it's like, yeah, like, it's kind of there, you kind of see it, but then you pull back, because it's like, you don't really want to admit to yourself that kind of reality. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm projecting. But I feel like a lot of people identify love as giving up bodily autonomy, as like, do this because I did this. I paid for this. I did this. I cleaned the house. I did this. I took care of this. Why can't you give me this? Why can't? And it's like, a lot of our understandings of love is very transactional and fear-based. And for me, that's not a true love. That's still oppression. That's kind of like what I got to at this point. I also want to play some clips from the previously recorded video that I made and I didn't actually publish, but I kind of want to round it out with some of that, because I feel like I did a better job of closing it in that rendition of the video, so I'm going to play that. So when I was writing this video, All About Love by Bell Hooks came to mind. So on page 59, she says, Sexist socialization teaches females that self-assertiveness is a threat to femininity. Accepting this faulty logic lays the groundwork for low self-esteem. So within the patriarchy, within the ways in which we have been socialized in a sexist society, females, women are taught that self-assertiveness, this is who I am, this is what I want, these are my needs, is a threat to femininity. You find this in the conversations of divine femininity and the manosphere alike. Being his peace, not being like those type of girls that just want to like start arguments and start problems. Like, I just want to be his peace. I want to be a soft place for him to rest his head on. And I feel like that idea is a beautiful fantasy of what a relationship is during infatuation stages. Now when you start having to compromise on ideals and desires and the actual aspects of building a long-term relationship, especially with the added factors of children, if that's something that you want. So accepting this faulty logic that self-assertiveness is a threat to femininity will lay the groundwork for low self-esteem. You are essentially being complicit in your own low self-esteem if you choose to believe the divine femininity ideals that as a woman you cannot be so assertive. And they don't say it in that way, of course, but they say it in the way where it's just, just free flowing. I just need a good man to lead, someone I can trust, so I can just not have to worry about those things. And it's like, we're nuanced, multi-complex beings, men, women, all humans alike, you know what I mean? But anyways, it continues. The fear of being self-assertive usually surfaces in women who have been trained to be good girls or dutiful daughters. In our childhood home, my brother was never punished for talking back. Asserting his opinions was a positive sign of manhood. When my sisters and I voiced our opinions, we were told by our parenting adults that this was negative and undesirable behavior. We were told, especially by our dad, that female assertion was not feminine. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that from their parents. Just this very clear different treatment of brothers and sisters. For me personally, I was relatively lucky that even though I was Dominican, I was not raised in the traditional Dominican way, but it is very common within my culture for you to be 6 years old cooking and cleaning for your 14-year-old brother who's just sitting around doing nothing because he's the man of the house, he's the little boy of the house, and you're a girl, you better get to learning how to take care of everybody. So you never really get to have a childhood, and you're basically being brought up to be good, to be obedient, to follow orders. And all of that will essentially lead to a lot of issues down the line, and if you don't acknowledge that aspect of your socialization as something to unpack, you will be due to repeat the same cycles over and over again in your life. Regardless of the intensity of the male masquerade, inwardly many men see themselves as the victim of lovelessness. Like everyone, they learned as children to believe that love would be present in their lives. Although so many boys are taught to behave as though love does not matter, in their hearts they yearn for it. That yearning does not go away simply because they become men. Lying, as one form of acting out, is a way they articulate ongoing rage at the failure of love's promise. To embrace patriarchy, they must actively surrender the longing to love. Patriarchal masculinity requires of boys and men not only that they see themselves as more powerful and superior to women, but that they do whatever it takes to maintain their controlling position. Once again, divine femininity makes it seem as if, or certain aspects of divine femininity within the way certain individuals that talk about it, they talk about it in the sense of domination and subservience. So it's this idea that men are more powerful, superior to women, and they must do whatever it takes to maintain their controlling position. So this is not solely about men, what men do, men this, men that. It's also the way that as women, we consciously and unconsciously are also internalizing aspects, understandably so, we've been conditioned under it, but aspects of the patriarchy as if they were our own, as if it's an inherent aspect of being a woman. This is one of the reasons men, more so than women, use lying as a means of gaining power in relationships. A commonly accepted assumption in a patriarchal culture is that love can be present in a situation where one group or individual dominates another. Once again, this book is about love, so it all references back to love. So she's analyzing all the different ways in which what love is and what love isn't. In a lot of the book, she talks a lot about how in our society, love is just described as this feeling, this thing that you cannot attach words to. But she fights against that notion because it is important to attach language to things so you can understand what you want from love, what you need from love. So in this situation, she's trying to talk about lying should not coexist with love, but it's something that's become normalized in our society because of the will to dominate, the desire to dominate. So, which is why it's a commonly accepted assumption in patriarchal culture that love can be present in a situation where one group or individual dominates another. Many people believe men can dominate women and children yet still be loving. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung insightfully emphasized the truism that where the will to power is paramount, love will be lacking. Where the will to dominate is paramount, love will be lacking. This is not a matter of dominance and submission. Your intimate relationship should not mirror or reflect the power struggles of our daily lives in this society. Talk to any group of women about their relationship with men, no matter their race or class. Talk to any group of women about their relationships with men, no matter their race or class, and you will hear stories about the will to power, about the way men use lying, and that includes withholding information as a way to control and subordinate. Now, I don't think Bell Hooks is a man-hater by any means. She has a whole book called The Will to Change, and it's all about how as feminists need to literally deal with men, sympathize with men, work alongside with men. She's not a man-hating feminist, abolish all men type of feminist. And she also acknowledges in several parts of this chapter that women also lie. They lie to get power, and they also feign helplessness. So this is not a man are bad, women are good. This is only talking about a specific situation within which, through the ways in which men have been socialized to not express emotion, to essentially lie to themselves about what they want. And the world has lied to them about the love that was waiting for them. And the cycle of lying will continue in the intimate relationship and will find its ways in with omitting information, withholding informations as ways to control and subordinate your partner, ways to control and subordinate your wife. So it is no accident that greater cultural acceptance of lying in this society coincided with women gaining greater social equality. Early on in the feminist movement, women insisted that men had the upper hand because they usually controlled the finances. Now that women's earning power has greatly increased, though it is not on par with men's, and women are more economically independent, men who want to maintain dominance must deploy subtler tendencies. Men who want to maintain dominance must deploy subtler strategies to colonize and disempower them. Even the wealthiest professional woman can be brought down by being in a relationship where she longs to be loved and is consistently lied to. To the degree that she trusts her male companion, lying and other forms of betrayal will most likely shatter her self-confidence and self-esteem. And when I was watching these videos and when I was writing this video, the only thing that came to mind is this part of the book, because when I first read it, I felt like it was such a clear thing that we can identify in the world around us. The idea that even the wealthiest professional woman, and by that she's talking about an access to capital, access to education, someone that is not perceivably as vulnerable as some other women may be that can then be victim to certain situations. So even the wealthiest and most professional women can still be brought down by being in a relationship where she longs to be loved and is consistently lied to. Now, we can get into whether, like this, it could be vice versa. Men can also be brought down by not having their needs fulfilled, of course. And she talks about it some more, and she even says, like a paragraph down, all visionary male thinkers challenging male domination insist that men can return to love only by repudiating the will to dominate. She quotes In the End of Manhood by Stoltenberg, how he continually emphasizes that men can honor their own selfhood only through loving justice. He asserts, justice between people is perhaps the most important connection people can have. Loving justice for themselves and others enables men to break the chokehold of patriarchal masculinity. She then goes on to talk a little bit more about this specific book. There's a chapter titled, How We Can Have Better Relationships with the Women in Our Lives. Stoltenberg writes, loving justice between a man and a woman does not stand a chance where the other man's manhood matters more. When a man has decided to love manhood more than justice, there are predictable consequences in all his relationships with women. Learning to live as a man of conscience means deciding that your loyalty to the people whom you love is always more important than whatever lingering loyalty you may sometimes feel to other men's judgment on your manhood. And I feel like there's a lot of women, and with talks of divine femininity, and it's obviously just outside of this like online conversation about femininity, about marriage, about womanhood, about manhood, because this obviously exists outside of the internet. We see these patterns in our everyday lives, in the media and everything. But I feel like some women are falling down unknowingly and potentially knowingly, falling down a pipeline of enabling men's ego, soothing a weak, fragile ego that's rooted in a false sense of masculinity and the approval of other men. Their masculinity is rooted in the perception of other men. And then you ground your femininity on their masculinity, which is grounded on the idea of the masculinity of other men. It is all a performance. And I don't mean to be like, throw it all away and don't bring it back. I mean, I would love that. But it's just to say, think beyond the performance. A lot of people, all of us are performing, but a lot of people are compulsively performing femininity and masculinity. I say compulsively performing because you can't help but not to. Every single aspect of your life is rooted in signifying to others acceptable depictions of your gender within a society for acceptability, and through that, the hopes of protection. But the reality is, engaging in situations like this, where there is such deep power imbalances, where there is the will to dominate the other, will leave you broken with no self-esteem, which will end up with you getting cheated on, girl. Because at the end of the day, you're counting on someone that's fragile and weak and has their self-esteem rooted in others' judgments, and at any moment where their masculinity is tested, where you step out of bounds out of your femininity, rules will be broken and you will be left alone. And I feel like a lot of women think that their allegiance to femininity, their perceived softness, their perceived malleability, their ability to comply, to be the man's piece, will save them from the patriarchy, and it does not. And it's really unfortunate. So that's how I felt about that part of the book. The book that I thought about a lot while writing this video was Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I finally read it a few weeks ago. Oh my God, I read this from like beginning to end so quickly. It was so good. It's definitely something I'm going to reread again soon because I really enjoyed the story. Essentially, it's the story of, this is like what the summary says, but it's a Southern love story, and it is told in the voice of a fiercely independent and stunningly attractive Janie Crawford, who refuses to live life in sorrow, bitterness, fear, or foolish romantic dreams. As she endured 3 marriages and a life marked by trials and tribulations, she evolves into an unforgettable heroine. I loved this book. And something, what reminded me about this book while I was writing was basically how her desires for life were so different from her grandmother. And I feel like a lot of us have such different values because of what we have proximity to, the ways in which we understand history, and the ways in which we have unpacked or not unpacked our own households and the things that we saw growing up. So when it came to her getting married, she lived with her grandmother, and as soon as Janie had a sexual awakening under a pear tree, she saw some pears blooming, and that shit was just so like erotic that she was just like, whoa, sex. And I'm like, it is described so beautiful. Like, it is incredibly written. I was just like, whoa, this pear tree, I get it. Like, I get what Zora Neale Hurston is serving us right now. But basically, when her grandma peeps that, she kisses some guy, she immediately is like, bro, you're getting married off, like, today. Like, right now. We need to find you a good man. And the man that she marries her off to, I think his name was Joe, she didn't like him. She found him ugly. She didn't like how he was. He had really long toenails. She couldn't stand him. And the reason why her grandmother wanted to marry him off to her was because he was a good man by all metrics within her worldview. He had a lot of land. He had 60 acres of land. Period. That's it. So her grandma was like, bro, you need somebody that could take care of you so you don't have to work like I worked. Her grandmother went through slavery. Janie didn't go through slavery. So they had completely different perspectives as to what freedom felt like and looked like. And there's this part of the book where Janie is basically reflecting on these different views of what life could be. And she basically says about her grandmother, she was born in slavery time when folks, that is, black folks, didn't sit down anytime they felt like it. So sitting on porches like the white madam looked like a mighty fine thing to her. That's what she wanted for me. Don't care what it costs, get up on a high chair and sit there. She didn't have time to think what to do after you got up on the stool or nothing. So, because her grandmother had to work so much, she would look at the white madam, the white slave master's wife, sitting there on the porch doing nothing, and was like, that right there is freedom, right? And for Janie didn't grow up with that idea, and just by personality, who she is as a person in general, what she wanted from life, Janie was like, bro, I would rather not. Like, I would rather literally go work in the muck in the Everglades, which she ends up doing, than be in a big house with money all by myself or whatever. Like, she had a completely different idea of what freedom, of what life could bring to her, a very expansive view of the world, which is why she gives the metaphor of the horizon. Like, she's made it to the end of the world and back, like, and she's seen so much in her life. You can't see shit from the porch for her. So the only reason why this book for me, and this part of the book for me, isn't necessarily a one-to-one comparison with the conversation at hand, but the ways in which it reminded me of it is how we relate to our own histories, both like political histories, but also personal histories, and how we think critically or not about them, how conscious or unconscious certain beliefs are within us, and what happens when we unpack or don't unpack them for ourselves. And I think for a lot of us, we've had the privilege of not existing in a time with that much restriction based off of gender. Of course, there are so many things that still need to be unpacked. There are still women, specifically women of color, specifically trans women, that are extremely marginalized and who their lives are being, and not even women of color and trans women, also black women, visibly, unambiguously black women, dark-skinned women, and the intersection of dark-skinned black trans women. But I think generally speaking, a lot of us have the privilege of not having to have lived the way in which our, not even ancestors, because ancestors sound like 100, 200, like our grandmothers did, our mothers did, you know what I mean? Just a few decades ago. Let's not forget, black women only got the right to vote because of the civil rights movement in the 1960s. This is not something old and forgotten. My father was born in the 60s. That man is literally right outside right now, chilling. Like, you know what I mean? It's not a far history. So I feel like because of the way things move, because of media, because of the messages we're received, because we don't understand our privileges and we don't think critically about the past, because our public school education system and even private school and even all the schooling systems in this country have failed us and serve as propaganda for our capitalistic military hellscape. A lot of people haven't really realized the work that was done for you to be able to say whatever you want to say. Doesn't matter what you want to say. You could say anything in the world, but you don't even realize the freedom that you have to do that and what it took to get there. So when it gets into conversations about feminism and some women are taking it too far and they're going too far in one direction, it's like the only reason why you're able to get on YouTube and say whatever you want to say is because women and just people in general literally died for you to say these things. Literally dedicated their entire existence on this earth to this, to bring value to you, an incalculable value that you cannot even recognize or see. It's intangible to you because you do not know your own history. So the idea of freedom for some women is this sort of mythic fantasy of like Janie's grandmother, the white woman sitting on the porch and Janie saying you wouldn't even know what to do if you got to sit on the porch. Like, that's where the myth ends. A lot of y'all are talking about, as a wife, what I would do. I would submit to my man. You wouldn't even know what to do once you became a wife. Like, what's on the other side of that? I, as a woman, don't want my greatest achievement to be marriage, to be the fact that I got picked by a man and you didn't. I am more than that. It is not because a gender wars conversation. It's not because as a feminist, blah, blah, blah. It's because as a human being, I am significantly more complex, nuanced, and the value that I have the potential to bring into this world spans beyond getting picked. Now, I do believe in the importance of love and the transformative, transcendent power of love. I feel like love is what will change the world, is the true answer to life. But I don't think the the compulsive performance of femininity within femininity understood within patriarchal gender roles is true love, true self-love, because it's a performance. You could be a feminine being, you could like feminine things, that's not the conversation. But the idea of subservience, of lying to yourself about who you are and what you want and putting your needs to the side, is not true love of yourself, and is by its own nature, by the own definition of submission, cutting the potential for your life into pieces. So that's why I felt very passionately about making this video. Of course, like, who knows what's around the corner for all of us, and our life should not be defined by what we do or don't do. Of course, you are inherently of worth, inherently a valuable person just by being you, a human being on this earth. I strongly believe that. But I also want to make the point that a lot of little girls are socialized to believe that their greatest achievement will be marriage. And I want to, pose an alternate sort of viewpoint and framework, which is you can have greater achievements than that. You really could. There's so much more you can explore. I think the love that you can have in community, like with your girlfriends, I think the love you can have, can be significantly more impactful than your subservience to a man. And I just don't want content like this. I don't want more and more vulnerable young women to equate the trials and tribulations they're having in their life and their difficulty performing femininity for whatever reason, whether it's an inability to whether it's a lack of access to capital, so they can't get the visual signifiers of woman in patriarchal society, of the look, the body, the hair. They are barred from these aspects of the idea of womanhood. I don't want women that are vulnerable because they have struggled to adhere to that, because they struggle to submit, because it feels wrong to them, but maybe they're getting tired of not getting picked, to continue to contradict themselves and forget themselves for the sake of another man, of soothing a fragile man's ego. You know what I mean? So, it just breaks my heart. Yeah. But thank you so much all for watching. I feel immensely privileged to be able to sit here and speak to you all time and time again. And I'm looking forward to the next video. Please stay safe. It is absolutely wild outside. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I have a few ideas, but like, it's really scary, scary times. So I hope you all stay safe. I hope you all are getting rest. I hope you all are putting on sunscreen. And yeah, thank you so much, and see you guys in the next one.